How's it going? Today we're talking about something that comes up all the time in cybersecurity, and that is risk. People hear risk and know something bad might happen, but in cybersecurity, it's actually a lot more specific than that. At a basic level, risk in cybersecurity is the chance that something bad happens to your systems, your data, or your network, combined with how bad that thing would actually be. So it's not just can something happen, it's also how much does it matter if it does happen. That's a big part of it because not all risks are equal. When people talk about risk, they're really talking about three main pieces. You've got threats, vulnerabilities, and impact. A threat is anything that could cause harm. That could be a hacker, malware, ransomware, phishing emails, even an employee making a mistake. Basically, anything that could go wrong. Then you've got vulnerabilities. A vulnerability is a weakness. So maybe your system isn't patched. Maybe you're using weak passwords. Maybe something is misconfigured. That's the opening. That's what allows the threat to actually do something. And then you've got impact. That's the damage. So if something does happen, what does it actually cost you? Are we talking a minor inconvenience? Or are we talking your entire business going down? Data loss, financial loss, reputation damage, all of that falls under impact. So when you combine those ideas together, that's how you start thinking about risk. You've got something that could happen, a way for it to happen, and then the result if it does. Not every vulnerability actually matters, and that's something a lot of people don't realize at first. You could have a system with a known vulnerability, but if there's no realistic threat targeting it or no real impact if it gets exploited, the risk might actually be low. On the other hand, you could have something small, like an employee reusing passwords, and that ends up being a huge risk because attackers target that all the time, and the impact could be massive if accounts get compromised. So risk is always about context. It's not just technical, it's situational. In cybersecurity, people often try to measure risk, and you'll hear this idea of likelihood and impact. Likelihood is basically how likely is this to happen. Impact is how bad is it if it does happen. And together, that gives you a sense of priority because at the end of the day, you can't fix everything. There's too many systems, too many vulnerabilities, too many possible threats. So, what do? You focus on the highest risks first. That's what companies are doing. They're not trying to eliminate all risk because you can't, they're trying to manage it. There are a few ways organizations deal with risk. One is mitigation, that just means reducing the risk. You install patches, you add security controls, you train employees, you make it harder for something bad to happen. Another one is transfer. That's usually things like cybersecurity insurance. You'd be shifting the financial impact somewhere else. Then you've got avoidance. That's just not doing the risky thing in the first place. If something is too risky, you just don't allow it. And then there's acceptance. Sometimes the risk is low enough or the cost to fix it is too high, so the company just accepts it and moves on. That happens more than you'd think. One thing I want to point out is risk isn't just external. A lot of people only think of hackers, but internal risk is a big deal too. Employees clicking phishing links, misconfiguring systems, accidentally exposing data. That's one of the most common sources of problems. When you think about risk, you've got to think both outside and inside. Now, if you're trying to get into cybersecurity, this is something you really want to understand because pretty much every role deals with risk in some way. So, yeah, that's the idea of risk in cybersecurity. It's a combination of threats, vulnerabilities, and impact. And it's all about figuring out what could go wrong how it could happen, and how bad it would be if it did. Hopefully that makes sense. Anyways, thanks for watching, and remember, Floppy Tech loves you.